When we talk about stability, what do we exactly refer to here in this context is why would a citizen willingly obey the law if it is imposed on her by a collective body, many of whose members have beliefs and values quite dissimilar to her own? Yet, unless most citizens willingly obey the law, no social order can be stable for long. What does it mean? In when we talk about a political democracy, okay, when we talk about political democracy, it is essential that there is a public consensus in one way or the other that leads to the formulation of law. Otherwise, it would be a chaotic land. If all of us have opinions of different kinds, but there is a certain point in time we agree on the decision. We agree that okay, this is what we must adhere to. That's how laws are formulated. That's how policies are, placed in the upper house and then put to practice. Unless people agree, unless majority of the people agree to whatever decision has been taken, you cannot continue a social order for a longer period of time without any kind of a chaos. The public consensus is important, extremely important, but also understand that when a body that decides or that take calls on people's behalf, it must do so by keeping people in mind. The laws, the policies that are formulated are not formulated in isolation. Though there are five representatives who are deciding on all our behalf what sort of laws and policies should be put forward for us to follow, to live peacefully, to live progressively, to live vibrantly in a democracy, there is always some sort of a rift. There's always some sort of a conflict between a majoritarian point of view and people who protest those kind of laws and policies, and they have their own reasons. Understand these own reasons would be actually favoring the public because they think better than those people who are in power. Those people who are holding on to the office of prophet, those people who are holding on to the power positions that are bestowed to them on the sheer virtue of being elected to the upper house, need to understand that the policy framework or the legal framework that is put forward must be in the favor of the public. The public must agree. But there is always a conflict that happens or that arises because our value systems, our understanding, beliefs, exposure to different things would be quite dissimilar to that of the other people. So there is always that kind of a categorization of conflict that happens, which is problematic to the concept of stability establishment in a democracy. I'm borrowing a little bit from political science classes to talk about what role media could largely play when we are talking about democratic reforms, so to say. A certain kind of a policy needs changes. Laws are amended. You must have heard about amendment of laws, right? Now the question that arises is why do we require legal amendments in our country? Why do we need policy level changes and policy level transformations in our country, in a democracy? Why is it imperative? And what role media can play in driving such kind of changes or transformation? Something that we are going to look at in the next session when we talk about media and public opinion. But for now, understand that that conflict remains. Because as citizens, we have innumerable diversified opinions. Each of us would have a certain take on any kind of topic. The other day I was I was telling you why there is a variation in terms of our choices and acceptances regarding a certain public product. Let's say cinema. I like something, you do not like something, you have your opinion, I have no opinion. I can choose to not watch a film if I don't necessarily agree with the philosophy of the film. I would choose not to read an author or a poet if I don't necessarily agree to his or her politics, a point of view, or worldview. Can I do the same thing when I'm talking about law? Can I say, no, I find putting on a helmet and driving to be extremely suffocating in nature. So I would not, or it ruffles my hair, or it alters my hairstyle, or doesn't go with my personality. I like to drive without a helmet. Are you getting a point? Would it make sense? Because everybody would have their opinion. I would say no, it is important for public safety that you put on, and your own safety, that you put on a helmet and drive. And as for the Motor Vehicles Act, all of us are supposed to take care of ourselves while being outside riding bikes. So there is a law, it constantly comes in conflict with you. So what we do now? I don't believe in wearing a helmet and riding. I don't believe in wearing a helmet and riding a bike. But there's a law, there's a formulation of a law which says that I must. Otherwise, I have to pay a fine, which I might pay. But that's not the point. The point is can we choose law? We can't pick and choose what kind of policies work for us individually or not, right? So it's always a collective. Try and understand, it's always a collective, always a majoritarian point of view that is given more prevalence or preeminence over something else. Now, what journalism has to do is journalism has to operate in this space of oppositional worldviews. Oppositional worldviews is what I just described. You obeying the law as a law-abiding citizen and not agreeing necessarily with this, right? So when you directly come in conflict with any worldview for that matter, that worldview could be just yours and mine as well. But these are two different worldviews, right? You believe in something, I do not believe in something. So our worldviews collide. This is where media steps in and tries to play the role of a catalyst in driving one particular ideology or particular worldview to merge it with the other. Are we good? Clear? So when there are different ideologies, there are conflicts that are bound to happen. Where media steps in is it offers you content which is sort of objective in nature, which is balanced in nature, which is supposed to. Not necessarily every media house is doing so. What I'm talking about is an ideal scenario. An ideal scenario, a natural scenario where the role of the media should be to bring in that kind of objectivity in bouncing worldviews which are necessary for public consensus. Are we clear? All right. Journalism as the guardian of public political forum. No other societal institution is properly positioned to accomplish. Accomplish what? To create a public political forum. What does it refer to? What does it mean? Public officials are obviously ruled out. Why are public officials ruled out? Because they would middle around and try to change opinions. It could affect that forum. It could affect the decision making that comes out of that forum. So those people who hold the office of profit in any kind of public institutions are ruled out, because the power position that they have might have a larger impact which is negative in nature when we talk about the relationship between society, citizens, and they could have a larger hand in censoring content, in deliberately attempting to threaten because of the power position that they hold. That if you don't do this, I'll create some sort of a dangerous situation for your family or for you. So either through favor or through fear, your voice is shut down. So even though you are a part of the public political forum, your opinions are not taken into consideration, or many a times your opinions are shut down because you cannot publicly voice out. I'll give you a very small example. Okay, which is kind of personal in nature, but that's how it is. Yeah, somebody's mic is still unmuted. Please mute it. All right. So what happens here is, since the last 6-7 years, I have lost a lot of friends on social media. I periodically get into fights with family, friends, relatives for the kind of political opinion that I hold regarding everything that is happening in and around our country, the state, as well as the world. It's a worldview. That's it. Okay. I don't necessarily affiliate myself with particular political party or ideology for that matter. But when we talk about public affairs, when we talk about governance, when we talk about policies, when we talk about what is happening, the socio-political scenario or situation in this country, I have my opinion and I strongly voice out that opinion. Okay. And there, at that point in time, I have a very clear stand regarding things. And I tend to justify that in one way or the other. Okay. Now that is something that people look at from a point of view, perspective of attacking as an attack. I'm not attacking individuals. I'm not even attacking one particular person whom you deem to be the supreme leader. My point is, that is the policy that is put forward. I'm a tax-paying citizen, right? And this is a democracy. I voted. So I have an opinion. I'm voicing it out. You can disagree with my opinion, but you can't stop me to speak. And I'm categorically told not to voice out my opinion because I might get into trouble. I might get into trouble in my workspace. I'm already losing friends on social media because I don't necessarily agree to the kind of opinions they hold value. They hold close to their heart, which is okay. That tomorrow I might land up in jail if I voice out my opinion. I've been categorically told. I'm not kidding. I'll just open my phone and I can show it to you. How many people in the last 5 years have told me not to talk? Why is this a democracy then if I can't talk? Whether my opinion matters or not, it's a different thing. Whether my opinion is a part of the public political forum or wherever it is, that's a different thing. But am I not supposed to talk about? These are the things that I can talk about. These are things that I cannot talk about. There is a soldier's widow. Soldier has passed away. There's a widow who is propagating or has written a long editorial piece talking about why peace should be given prevalence when we talk about inter-country relations over war. Why war should not be propagated. And if I resonate with the views and I share that article and I talk, there are people who directly attack me saying that, no, you are not supposed to talk about what sort of a stand the center or the state or the defense forces are supposed to take. You're a civilian, you cannot have any kind of argument regarding this. Then as a civilian, why am I paying taxes? The salary that goes to the defense forces personnel is also drawn from public exchequer, right? It's you and me, your parents, and everybody who pays. That's how it is. Coming back to this, that those people who are in the powerful, who are in the public official position, they might, I'm not saying it would happen, but they might try to censor content. They might try to deliberately attempt to threaten because of the power. And we see this frequently today, especially with authoritarian regimes that implement laws, fines, and other sanctions aimed at quieting the press. When press could be looked at as a public political forum where I can write letters to the editor, where I can critically comment, where I can come in 7 p.m. debates, where I can, you know, go out there and do what I call as citizen journalism. I am perturbed by certain issues. I'll take my phone and report that issue. Things like that. But those people who are holding on to this position, especially in authoritarian regimes, understand that they would come up with rules and laws and regulations which are problematic in nature to quieten the press. Yeah. Similarly, we cannot look at commercial institutions. Concentration of wealth can just as easily taint the public forum. Public forum could be the media or any public forum for that matter. As businesses in capitalistic society have profits as their primary aim. It's a no-brainer that capitalism drives the power through money and wealth. And those commercial institutions, those organizations who are largely in for profit, their primary aim is to make money. Then what would happen is when they are holding on to public political forum, you cannot entrust them because they would drive those kind of policies and laws and regulations which can bring them some sort of financial interest or the other. Otherwise, what would happen is, why would they engage themselves? How frequently you would see corporates or commercial institutions actually doing something for the public by voicing out their institution's opinion, unless it is a matter of an issue which has financial implications for them, in a right way or a wrong way. Yeah. So citizens will always worry whether or not the institution responsible for ensuring that political forum is free, fair, and the public is in fact manipulating it to serve their own interests. For politicians, that interest is political power, for business, wealth. So we need some organization, we need some institution to hold on to the values of how public political forum can role in the market. A scope of an opportunity where truth is held with value. So the solution, therefore, next slide. The solution, therefore, is to try to align the institution's interest with those of citizens. Some things we can reasonably ask for when we talk about journalistic platforms, journalistic forums, whose first loyalty is to the citizens. And such must strive to put the public interest and the truth above all their institutional self-interest or assumption. By imparting truth, in its mission as well. What journalism is doing is journalism can even help people, which means citizens, evaluate and refine their interests, especially in complex and remote areas of life, which in which they have very few insight or encounter with. The people in remotest part of our country who do not have much clue regarding things. The media can actually play educators' role. That's where media was brought in, television was brought in as an educational experiment in 1959. When the site project was launched, that was the primary objective, that how can the media play a larger role in educating and bringing awareness to the public. Because public consensus is not built in a day. When I say I agree or disagree to certain projects that is implemented by the dispensation or certain policies that are put forward by those people who are in law, I'm not talking in air. I'm not talking in vacuum. And I am not on this earth yesterday. If I have started making things of the world since 10 years, since when I was 10, it's been 25 years. That's quarter of a century. How much of it holds value in public forum is a different thing, but you must be allowed. Agreement and disagreements can happen. But is my intent clear? Is my conscience clear? Why am I speaking for? Who am I speaking for? So this is where media and journalism has to play the larger role. In order to give journalism legitimate authority to govern the political forum, citizens must genuinely believe that they will be better off by allowing journalists to take this up as their purpose. So as future media personnel, as those people who must believe in the purpose of journalism, we have to stay with that assumption and a strong sense of belief that still there is handful of newspapers, 4 news channels, 5 radio channels, radio stations who are committed to the value of imparting truth to the public, to us, so that we can make informed choices whenever we are in a space. And this is the case with which political authority, citizens of any comprehensive doctrine, must find journalist decisions and methodologies to be reasonably acceptable as well, else the integrity of the institution of journalism is undermined severely. The moment we lose faith, remember that it doesn't stay truthful anymore. If you lose faith on me, would you sit in the class? Would you have any sense of a respect to this relationship that we have? Individually, you might think I'm an whatever. Okay. You don't necessarily agree with my politics. That's totally okay. But I have a job to do. My job is to offer my insights into a particular topic and leave you with the decision making part. How much you have to take from a particular topic is up to you. I can't force feed you with ideas. Your ideas still remain your ideas. But if there is a significant influence that I can have, my role is as a teacher is done. Can I indoctrinate you with thoughts? Should I indoctrinate with you thoughts? If you are becoming too easily influenced, which means you are not a strong person. Which means anybody can sway your mind. I can talk to you for 15 minutes and convince you why you should vote for X political party or believe in Y's opinion. Or I cannot touch you because you have been indoctrinated already by your parents, by the kind of teachers you have already had, by the kind of books you have read, by the kind of films you have watched, by the kind of music you have listen to, by the kind of political forums you are a part of. So you alone bringing in such kind of values to it. Where media intervenes, whether to believe in the media or not is again left as a choice to you. Within democratic societies, we have typically understood the press to serve three related but distinct roles. Okay. First is that of an electorate informer. The press is charged with gathering and dissemination of information to the public. Media's role is primarily gathering news and disseminating information to the public, enabling citizens to effectively participate in self-governance. What is self-governance? How do you conduct yourself in the society as a law-abiding citizen? Wherever there is requirement for protest, because you think that the laws are against the values of the Constitution, are against the values and principles of holding on to the truth of democracy, you stand in. Where you think there is appreciation required for the dispensation or for the establishment for doing an incredibly good job, please feel free to appreciate. If the government is doing incredibly good with healthcare and education and women empowerment, wherever you are, applaud that. But don't clap just because you are asked to clap. Given the nature of the news it reports, who reports the media reports, its function as the primary source of information for an electorate which requires it to discharge even the most basic of constitutive and legitimizing role. What does this mean, the statement? It must function as the primary source of information for an electorate, which means the electorate body should also get equal amount of information for them to discharge the most basic and of constitutive and legitimizing role. Whatever is their role as a part of the Constitution, as a part of the electoral democracy, they must be able to dispense that, which means they need to be informed about the public, and the public should also be informed about what is happening there. This is where media must intervene as an electorate informer. In next elections, if you have to make an informed choice and you are actually not aware about what has happened in the last 5 years because Rajya Sabha TV is very boring for you, then the choices you're making is problematic in nature. Everybody says that this teacher is bad, so let's assume this teacher is bad. You have never attended a class. Are you getting my point? Next point is media's role or journalism's role as a public watchdog. With the rights conferred by the establishment of free press comes the responsibility for it to serve as an independent monitor of power, safeguarding members of society from abuses of power by the few who wield it. Who are the people who are wielding power? Those people who are in power, the elites, the governing elites, the political elites, the military elites, the corporate elites, the ones who can change the fate of this nation, as they claim, right? As free press, being an institution of free press, Journalism's role, media's role, primarily is to serve people independently. I'm not taking any fear from you. I'm not taking any favor from you. I'm safeguarding the interests of those people who are constantly abused by those people who are in power. If you are discriminated on the basis of caste, if you are discriminated on the basis of religion, if you are discriminated on the basis of belonging to a certain gender, all these things are anti-constitutional in nature. Yes. But you are too weak to protest for yourself, to protest for the community. Somebody has to step in and do that job. Somebody has to tell those people who are exploiting the poor, the distressed, the marginals, the minorities, that we will lend you a voice. And this is where media's role becomes extremely significant. The journalists must operate without fear or favor of those they report on, and thus are in a position to report critically on any abuses of power. Abuse can happen inside your house. Abuse can happen everywhere. Every kind of abuse. I'm not talking about just a particular kind of abuse. Any kind of discrimination that happens is anti-constitutional in nature. But the discrimination stops? No. Do people get social justice? No. So media must consistently try to fight for the population which is always in stress, which is consistently abused by those people who are in power. The next point is media's role as being a fourth estate in the democracy. Okay, in India, the three branches of government, I'm sure aware of what are the three branches, with their separate powers, analogous to the three states of English Parliament, referred to by Edmund Burke, who originated this phrase, fourth estate. As the fourth estate, the press acts as another check on the three branches of the government, that is, quick, legislative. Yeah, thank you. By giving voices to the opinions of the public. You and me are the public, we are the consumers. We are the taxpayers who are the citizens of this country. But many a times we are left voiceless. Our opinions never reach the place, right? So in such sort of a situation, the press must act as the fourth estate by enabling us with forums, with spaces where we can discuss, we can share our opinions. It can be a part of the public consensus later. All right, so that's more or less about the role of democracy, role of media in democracy. In the next session, we are going to talk about public opinion and the role media plays in the formulation of public opinion. So I'll stop here.